is about to begin.
Lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans.
Hello and welcome to Truth, Lies, Shenanigans live streaming podcast where your favorite hosts bring the most interesting topics of the week to you and to our panel to discuss and ultimately determine if it's truth, lies, or shenanigans. And of course, we always try to have some fun with shenanigans of our own along the way. My name is Neo Nix, and we have a fantastic show for you and some very interesting topics. We'll start with our guest spotlight on Wisconsin-based TV news journalist and blogger Jamie Perez. We'll be asking about her career and especially how this past year has affected her. Then Robbie Rock wants to talk about Islam-phobia after a tragic attack on Muslims in Canada that I hadn't heard about. Lizzie brings up a discussion about banning the pit maneuver after it was used on a pregnant driver. And Gianni Storm is wondering, why don't more straight men say, I love you to each other?
I love you, bruh. I love you, man. I love you. I love you.
Right. And as always, we'll start with a quick fire question and end with Shenanigans, the game show. But before we get into the show, I need to introduce you to our lovely hosts. Our professor, editor, journalist, sports savant out of Washington, D.C., Miss Lizzie Enders.
Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday Fun Day. Glad to be with you here today. I had a cicada incident earlier this week, but I am still living here to tell about it. And it comes on right before our very own favorite special guest host, Patrick Mayor Patrick Wilson, indulged in some cicada cuisine. So when I saw that picture, you guys go to our TLS page on Facebook, you'll see the whole video of Patrick chowing down on the cicadas. And when I saw that, I said, okay, not only 2 days ago was I screaming bloody murder during a work Zoom session because cicadas flew into my apartment. So you'll see the difference between that reaction, like num 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 num, versus me crying to my interns because a cicada was in my apartment. However, like Mayor Patrick, my cat Remy, he ate the cicadas that entered my
my
apartment.
dogs eat them like crazy.
Yeah,
Eat them like crazy. And by the way, Chrissy, we do see you on Instagram. We see you. All right, and our gamer, tech guru, and bona fide rock star with the rock band Falling Machine, coming to you from Sudbury, Ontario, Mr. Rob B. Rock.
What's up? It's good to be here with my friends on a Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to some lively discussion. Looking forward to our discussion with Jamie. We had a little bit of time with her pre-show, and I think that our audience is really going to enjoy her personality.
All right. Yeah. And back after a week off, streaming from Atlanta, Georgia, our favorite model, actress, and co-host of TLS Unscripted, Miss Gianni Storm.
Hey guys, it feels like a lifetime. It feels like forever. I missed you guys so much.
We missed you too.
I know, I missed our Sundays. It's so different on Unscripted, I'll tell you. But I miss you guys. I can't wait to see your opinions, learn something new as I always do, and I miss the audience. And I can't wait to speak to Jamie.
All right, Gianni, tell us a little bit about your last episode of Unscripted and how everyone can find you.
So you guys can find me and Olivia E on Unscripted Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about all type of fun things. We have food challenges. We talk about relationships, cheating, the education system, God, the lack of God, everything.
Yeah, it's very unscripted. It's all over the place. Yeah. A lot of conversation, but it's a great conversation. So don't forget Wednesday, 8 p.m. You can also download it on TLSpod.com or view a TLS show. All right, it's
I like to always give our viewing audience a little bit of unscripted in what they talk about. So Gianni, what was the main topic for Wednesday's Unscripted?
The main topic was actually a Wednesday random knockout. So we were going based off things that we felt were on our hearts, on our minds. My topic today is kind of something similar to unscripted, where we're talking about like heterosexual men saying "I love you." So it's more of like a subject rather than
So she's
news.
she's bringing
Something.
unscripted to us, straight to us. So
So if
love it.
she's bringing us to what, let's very quickly, aside from our hot topics today, our trending topics today, what's on your mind, panel? What's on your heart? What y'all feeling today? What y'all feeling today?
All right, now I'll probably get into it throughout the show. I'm really interested in the topic about that Gianni has. So about
What
saying,
you feeling today?
say what?
I just asked Rob, what are you feeling today? Aside from the tragedy in Canada
Oh.
this week, what are you feeling at 4:11 p.m. on this Sunday, June 13th?
I'm
Yeah.
feeling like last night was a bit of a rough night and I didn't get much sleep, and that I'm looking forward to a solid night of sleep, fingers crossed, before I return to my professional life on Monday.
All right.
Fun.
Neo, you got anything aside from this show and topics? You got anything that you're feeling that's making you feeling good, feeling bad?
Like Rob, I did get a pretty good night's sleep for once. Slept in tonight because actually, the show usually takes up my Saturday, but I was able to get things done early and I got to sleep early. It was awesome.
Nice.
Adulting.
Yeah.
Adult,
Adulting.
adulting. Finally, Johnny, what you got? What you feeling, girl?
I'm feeling like I'm ready for my birthday. I'm feeling like I'm ready to make $1 million and I'm ready to see the world. I'm feeling all of the excitement. My birthday is coming around. You too, Liz.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
my birthday's in
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks. I'm not necessarily feeling it just yet, even though everyone's expecting me to like plan something big. And I have, one of my besties coming out to visit. Um, it's going to be a busy week, so I'm not necessarily feeling that yet. Right now, I'm just feeling everything that's going on in sport. Everything that's going on in sport. That's what I'm feeling.
Sports mode.
All right, cool.
Nice.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the show. Let's start it off with our quick fire question. All right, this week, one of the first Muslim women elected to Congress, Representative Ilhan Omar, questioned the U.S.'s handling of war crimes, stating, quote, "We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban," end quote, to which Republicans and some Democrats felt adding the U.S. and Israel to that list was offensive. What do you say about the U.S. and Israel being included in that list? Let's start with Robbie Rock.
War. Good God. What is it good for? Supporting the U.S. military industrial complex, for one.
Gianni.
As an American, I agree. America needs to be on that list.
Okay. Lizzie.
As an American, I disagree.
Mm,
As an American, I disagree.
interesting. All right. I say she spoke the truth. I mean, the U.S. has been in 19 wars since World War II and killed over 12 million people. That's a definition of atrocities. So, all right. So, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, aka AOC, blasted Dems for mischaracterizing her comments and fueling right-wing attacks. So, what do you think the lack of support? What do you think of the lack of support from the fellow Democrats, Lizzie?
I think one, as politicians, as people that are in the public sphere, in the public eye, I think we need to be more careful about how we word things, about our delivery when we have opinions about certain topics. Now, when I say I disagree with the connotation that the United States should be likened to terrorists. That's what I agree. That's what I disagree
Mhm.
with. Now, do I think that nation we have committed some atrocities and likened it to war? Absolutely. But that's completely different, in my opinion, from being a terrorist. However, Representative Omar came back. Initially, she did call out the people who were coming for her, who she said, these same representatives, the same congresspeople who called me on the phone because they want my vote on their initiative. They won't call me on my phone to have a discussion about this comment that I made. I agree with that. Like, not everything needs to be called out in the public on Twitter. However, she did clarify what she meant. And so let me read you what she said.
Okay.
She said, to be clear, the conversation was about accountability for specific incidents regarding those international criminal court cases, a moral comparison between Hamas and the Taliban and the US and Israel. And I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with. I think we do need to be called out on certain incidents, on specific incidents, but I do not equate the United States with the Taliban. That is something completely and totally different. And so I think, I think Nancy Pelosi could have given her a call first.
Oh,
I
definitely.
think her fellow Democrats, because and this is going to be very partisan of me. I really don't, expect anything much from Republican politicians, if you will. So it didn't surprise me that they came out for her in the public sphere. But I think if you're in the same party, she's afforded a call before you blast her.
Yeah.
She should be afforded a conversation before you blast her in the public sphere.
So, I didn't want to get too deep, but I have to disagree with you on there being a difference, a significant difference between terrorism and wars, because
That's not what I said.
okay, explain, clarify.
I didn't say that there was a difference between terrorism and wars. That never came out of my mouth. I said
You can't equate the atrocities from terrorism to the atrocities of war. Is that was the gist of what I understood?
I said you can't equate our participation in wars and defending our country in wars from an act of terrorism based on an ideology when we haven't been hit, when we have no offense in front of us.
But
You
isn't that
can't
what Israel? I'm not Israel. Isn't that what Hamas and Afghanistan are doing? Is trying to protect their lands, their homes, their.
what was the telling when they hit the United States and New York in 9/11?
They were making a statement. I'm not saying it's correct, but I'm not saying that it was. I'm not
They
saying it
were
was
using
much
the
different.
CIA.
It wasn't much different than us sending drones to blow up their buildings.
No. See, and that was just a byproduct of training that they had received over the 80s to destabilize the area. It was a Cold War artifact that became its own entity, and it lashed out. It's it's unfortunately
We're calling their actions terrorism, but they're
Yeah,
doing
because
very much what the U.S. and Israel have
But
done to them.
go back to
when your
what
chief export is democracy and capitalism, and you're bringing it to countries whether they want it to or not, I kind of struggle that the line gets blurred there. And
however,
really,
if you look at the totality of the Taliban, it's not just in specific. The totality of the Taliban is atrocities against women, atrocities against homosexuals, atrocities.
America has similar atrocities. Americans have similar atrocities throughout history.
But America
Sorry.
America does not have the same type of atrocities. That's what I'm saying. The whole purpose of the Taliban is to be very stifling. We control everything. There's no democracy or even an attempt at democracy in the Taliban. And so that's
I don't
why
know that democracy is necessarily the right thing for those people.
But wait, what?
Why is democracy the right way for?
I'm not saying that they need to have a democratic government. What I'm saying is their ideology is completely different, and that's the
It
distinction.
doesn't necessarily mean wrong. It's just different.
That's the distinction that Omar made. She was not talking about the totality. She was talking about specific incidents, and I agree with her on that. I'm not saying that we as Americans are not without any guilt in a lot of the strife, a lot of the violence that we've caused across the world. However, we are not the Taliban. We are not.
Okay.
So
We're going
we're not.
we're, we're
But
gonna have to
but
agree
she's
to this.
talking
I know
about
we're not
but she's
officially the
talking about
Taliban.
specific war crimes, and they
And I
should
think
not be
U.S.
they
and
should not
Israel
be
need to be on
tried
that
and
list.
reviewed domestically. And I think that's the crux of it, and it wasn't clarified properly
Thank
because
you. That's all I'm
it
saying.
needs to be an international criminal court that
Sure.
reviews these things rather than a domestic court system that's going to be biased towards its military
Which is
forces.
totally right.
And I think you have a responsibility as a congressperson, as a public figure of our government, to be clear and concise with
Yes.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, do I think that they should have come at her publicly before contacting her? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And again, I think that harkens to their previous bias that they have against her as a woman of color, and as a Muslim.
By the way,
However,
we-
I think that there is some responsibility on her part as well to make sure that
that is
you are
clear.
clear when you make a statement.
Yeah, I told now that I agree with, because I wasn't clear on what she was saying either. I had to reread it, go through it again, listen to it again. I just want to say, I'm not gonna have time to play it, but she's getting. I feel bad for her because she's getting death threats. Jewish Congress people are upset with her. Hamas even came back with backlash, so I kind of feel bad for her situation. But
The Hamas backlash was interesting because they were like, "How do you compare us to the United States?"
I know, right? And I agree with that in some ways. I mean,
Right?
but all right, that was a great quick fire question. I appreciate you guys. All right, now it is time. Let's get in. She's been waiting for a while now, so let's get to our guest spotlight. Our spotlight is on TV news journalist Jamie Perez. Jamie Perez, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Great. So happy to have you. Welcome to the show. So let me quickly introduce you to our audience. Originally from California, Jamie Perez is a reporter for the CBS affiliate in Madison, Wisconsin. She's been there for the past 3 years and only moved to the Midwest in 2016 because of her first reporting job, which was in, of all places, Iowa. Outside of work, she loves to sing, craft, dance, cook, shop, and read. And she has a fantastic Instagram page. So if you're watching live right now, check her out real quick at Jamie_Perez TV. And I want you guys to take a look and come back and put some questions into the comment section so we can talk to Jamie. So again, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. All right, so feel free to go in a little more detail about yourself. Please add one thing in there that people can't Google about you.
Yeah, so I was whole life in California, as you said, and then I moved to Iowa because of my first job in TV reporting, and then I spent 2 years there, and I've been in Madison, Wisconsin for the past 3 years doing the same thing. I love what I do. One thing that you can't Google about me is I am allergic to garlic, which is in every
Allergic.
So yeah, so I mean, I'm not like deathly allergic, but like I'll basically just like break out in hives. So I do eat it sometimes just because it's so hard to avoid. But usually, if I just take like a over the counter Claritin or an allergy pill or something, it'll usually subdue all of the.
Wow, garlic, that's tough. It really literally is the flavor of almost everything.
I over
Yeah.
garlic everything.
I do. I love garlic.
Well, it's in everything
Yeah.
too. I mean, it's in mustard, it's in potato chips, like literally
I didn't realize it's in
everything.
mustard. Oh,
Marinara, like everything.
I know it's in marinara.
It's
Like,
impossible to find something
Jamie,
without garlic.
Jamie, so then typically when you go out to eat, do you alert the wait staff or the kitchen that you have a garlic allergy?
Sometimes, yeah, there are certain things that I know like will not have garlic in it, but I usually tell them like, oh, I'm allergic to garlic. If there's some in there, like it's not gonna kill me, but like if you can avoid it, that'd be great. And I just remember like 2 weeks ago when I was getting like really a bad allergic reaction, I told them like I ordered tacos and they're like, there's literally nothing on our menu that isn't marinated in garlic. And I was really mad.
I don't know how you avoid garlic. I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, you can't avoid it. That's why that's why I eat it sometimes and just try to deal with it.
All right, so my first
Very
question is,
interesting.
as my viewers know, I mean, I'm an avid TikToker, and there's several news reporters that have a regular everyday voice that they, and then this developed news reporter voice. So do you have like that news reporter voice versus your everyday voice? And can we hear it?
So I've been told, okay, so I've been told that I'm very natural when I do my news reports. Like, it's pretty much how I sound, except I feel like I enunciate a little bit more when I'm on air, just to make it sound a little bit more like a news presentation almost. So I don't really think I have a
Yeah.
huge difference. Like, you can really tell some people's different
Yeah,
voices. Like,
it's
they sound
crazy.
nothing alike.
Like they're just
But I
talking.
don't. Yeah, I mean, I want
You
people
can
to be able to.
Go ahead, Liz.
No, I was gonna say, you can definitely tell my journalism voice, for the difference between my journalism voice from when I am on the show or when I'm talking to my friends or even on the phone, just like casual
Enunciate.
conversation. It's a code switch. It's a
It
type of
is.
code switching.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah. I try not to differentiate my voice too much, just because I want to be authentic on air and I want myself to sound exactly the same in person as I do in my storytelling. But obviously, there's a little bit of an element of professionalism that needs to be distinguished as well. So I think that there's a slight difference, but I try not to make too stark of a contrast there.
I think I need to work on enunciating myself. So, all right. So, Lizzie, I know Lizzie has some comments. All right. What made you decide on the news reporter as a career? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so I actually got into writing because I love writing poetry, and that's something that I've loved like ever since I was probably like in fourth or fifth grade. I started writing poems, and obviously that's not journalism writing. But when I was enrolling in college, I sat down with a counselor to try to decide my major, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just going to community college, and she's like, "Well, what are some of your hobbies?" And I told her I liked poetry. She's like, "Okay, that's writing. Like, why don't you try journalism?" And then I started taking journalism classes, and then I really liked it, so I just kind of stuck with it, and here I am
And here
today.
you are,
Nice.
news reporter. All right. And so, before I turn it over to my co-host, I have one last question. So I was on your Instagram page, and you have an amazing Instagram page, by the way. It was a lot of fun to
Thank
go
you.
through. But the past year was a rough year between the protests, COVID, elections. So it was a crazy year. But there was one video that I had come across, and I'm curious if you could kind of like, as I'm playing it, kind of tell us what you're thinking and what's happening. And I'll turn the volume down if it gets too loud. But just kind of give us some idea of what's going on, because I think this was like May last year or something like that.
Trying to get people to leave right now.
You want to know the truth? You want to know the truth?
So this is
You
the
wanna know
first night of
truth?
protest.
You want to know
Notice
the
that you
truth?
listen to
The
it.
truth is, Madison's racist, United States is racist, and this bitch is racist. That's the fuck.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay.
This was live TV, right?
Emotional language.
That was
out
live
there. I'm
TV.
sorry about
That was the first night of major
Are you okay out
protests
there,
here in
Jamie?
Innocent black.
So they had to cut out the audio because the guy who you see shouting there, it continues to curse on air. And obviously that night, like,
All right, I'm sorry
there
about
was
putting you in a
a lot
better,
of
safer place
cursing
now.
happening
Tell
on
us
TV.
what's changed since you last saw us.
You're watching here too. I mean, people are saying, F the police, screaming profanities, and so I mean, it was a little nerve-wracking to be out there. I never covered a
Right now,
protest
it looks like they
before.
are towing away that car.
Was happening all across the country, and just here in Madison, we were feeling, it's the same impacts of it. There was tear gas being thrown. We were walking through like pepper spray bombs or whatever. People were just, looting stores, and there was just a lot of high tension. It was a very high tense situation, and so we probably were live on the air for till like 1 o'clock in the morning. I probably got there probably around 6 or 7 o'clock at night on my weekend. So I was called in. It was all hands on deck, and it was just a very tense and high strung situation. So that moment when that guy called me a B word on air, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on your podcast.
Yes,
but,
you are. Yes, you are definitely open to.
Yeah, he basically essentially called me a racist bitch on air, and like it was a little startling just because it's live TV, and you know, like, what do you do in that situation when you're live? The camera's on, you're rolling, and there's tear gas around you. You know, you do. So I just kind of let him say what he wanted to say, because my producers who were controlling what people see on TV, like in terms of when they're going to cut my camera off, they're that's almost me just like, hey, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, I guess we're just rolling with this.
But were you
It was
scared? I mean, you had to have been scared.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, a lot of the audience, they don't really take into consideration how vulnerable field reporters are, especially when they're live. So, like Neo said, were you scared? Like, what was your initial reaction or inclination?
I was just shocked at first. I like almost didn't even have time to be scared because there was so much going on around me that had happened before that, before the cameras were even on, that would just didn't shock me that something was going to happen, but I was still shocked that it did. You know what I mean? Because like you don't know what's gonna happen, but you're like, oh no, because it's live. So I was a little scared. I had my photographer who was obviously operating the camera right in front of me, but we were surrounded by people. So I think that's what was kind of scary is, yes, this one guy was the one that you guys saw on camera, but I mean, just there were people surrounding us that you didn't see on camera. So there really was nowhere to escape. And so I just stood there and I just let him say what he wanted. And I didn't take it personally because I understood his anger, I understood his frustrations, and I just kind of let it happen because it was live TV, you know, like I don't want to subject myself to an even worse spot that I was already in.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Yeah, I was impressed actually. I mean, you stayed relatively poised. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I can't imagine what it was like in that situation. But Lizzie, so what's your question, Lizzie?
So my question is, I mean, again, going back to your background, so you started in California and then you know, moved to Iowa and then now you're in Wisconsin. Like, just in both in your professional and personal life, what's been the biggest challenge or what was the biggest shock for you coming from California to Iowa to Wisconsin?
So biggest challenge and biggest shock are two actually different questions for me, just because the biggest shock was I grew up in Sacramento and then I moved to Los Angeles to go to school. So I moved from LA to Sioux City, Iowa. So one of the biggest cities in the country to a city that lots of people like probably don't even know exists, right? So it was just the culture shock was very different. I came from a very big, diverse city, lots of things happening, to a quiet town where like not a whole lot is going on, right? So that was the biggest shock. I think the challenge was moving so far away from home, no family, no friends, didn't know the area, had nothing to do, was by myself. And I think dealing with the culture shock and being truly alone was the biggest challenge for me. I did a lot of like self growth, self healing, because I had nobody to be with other than myself and my thoughts. So it was very, you know, very an opportunity for me to grow a lot, like personally and professionally, which I definitely did. I definitely grew a very thick skin in both realms of that.
And my second, because I totally understand. My second question is, what's the difference in news coverage that you feel, especially as a journalist, coming from Sacramento, where it's kind of like a little bit of everything, Sacramento, LA, California, and then you're in a smaller. So what do you think as a reporter, a journalist, the difference in news coverage and how you're in Madison now, how Madison covers the news versus what you grew up with in Sacramento?
Good question.
That is a good question. Well, there are a lot of similarities actually that would be a little bit you'd probably be surprised by, because I feel like the idea of news is the same regardless of where you are. But what's important to certain communities is going to be different. So, like when I moved to Iowa, it was very like farm and agriculture and politics were like leading our newscast at the time. Here in Madison's a very progressive area. I think they call it like a lot of blue and red state, so it's very progressive here. So the things that matter here, like, I mean, I really try to focus on positive news stories to like storytell and find a character that will make people care about a topic. And I feel like not every city or market for TV news necessarily caters to that. So Madison, it has been very like heartwarming in that sense because I feel a sense that people really care about one another. They care about the arts and the culture and food. And so those are the types of things that lead the newscast because obviously with news, it's, you know, it's about ratings. So we have to cater to what the audience wants. So, yeah, but I mean, the similarities across news, obviously, like, you know, we cover fires and shootings and all the things that bleeds, it leads type of thing. So that in that sense, news is essentially the same no matter where you
are. Are the politics different? Do you think the politics are different?
I'm sure they have to be different.
Yeah, they are. I mean, if you're going from California politics to Iowa or Wisconsin politics, I mean, there's a big difference there. Yeah. So, yeah, it just depends on, you know, what's going on and who the politicians are that dictate what news coverage it's going to get. So, yeah.
So we do have some comments online. Paulette Bertrand says, "You are a very composed lady. I would have fainted." Jeanette Brown says, "News reporters are trauma reporters. You have to learn to keep your cool. Well done. Glad you stayed safe."
Yep.
All right, Johnny. Johnny, what's your question?
My question was, what is one of the most interesting news story you have covered, or what is your favorite type of news to cover? I know you said you try to focus on positive things.
Yeah, so there was a story, I would say the most, not necessarily the most interesting, but the most impactful, one of the most impactful stories that I ever did was during Christmas, we got an email from this guy who says, my dad has terminal cancer, and for Christmas, he wants as many Christmas cards as possible. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like a heartwarming story altogether, like dibs, I'm covering this. And so that's really the type of stories that I like to cover, like heartwarming, emotional stories that is going to make the audience cry, make people feel something, because I think that's what makes my heart beat. And those are the days that I look forward to the most, is the days that I do story where people care about the story that they're watching. Because I'm sure everybody can relate to seeing something on the news where like, I don't care about this, or why are they covering this? I don't want to be that story. I want to be the person that you watch, that you care about, that you want to see when I'm covering every day. So anyways, the story, I ended up doing the original story, just that the guy wants as many Christmas cards as possible. If you have time, go ahead and send it. This man ended up getting 500,000 Christmas cards from around the world. And so we did a follow-up story.
Wow.
Yeah, we did a follow-up story with literally stacks and stacks in their garage, just filled with Christmas cards. And it like literally, like every day I was crying because the family would text me like updates of, this is what we got today. And just so many people did so many good things for the community, just or for this family beyond the Christmas cards. I mean, they donated things to schools in their names. They planted trees in this man's name. I mean, just a whole range of things that you possibly imagine. And my heart was so filled. Like I helped happen. And so the guy that asked for Christmas cards had terminal cancer, and he ended up passing away. And that was probably one of the hardest days of my life, to do a story where you truly care about the people that, you know, are this family let me into their lives during probably one of the most difficult things that they will ever have to go through. So it touched me. It touched so many people. That was definitely one of the most impactful and memorable stories that I've ever done, just because of how far that story reached and like what it did for this family.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's got to be tough to separate, you know, those personal things, because like we've had people on this show that, you know, dealt with COVID. We did a COVID Chronicles series, and I mean, you know, it's tough. But I mean, when you get caught up with people that you're working with, or that's got to be tough to kind of deal with. Robbie Rock?
Well, I didn't really separate it, because on air, like literally the second story that I did to follow up, just basically announcing that this man got 500,000 Christmas cards. So the story ran, and then it came back to me on camera to just kind of add like tag out or final comments of what I was going to say. And I ugly cried on it. Like,
I try not to cry on there because I ugly cry as well. So
I was a mess. And I was like, please don't watch this again. I can't watch this again. But it was so me that I just had to share it. And I was like, all right, y'all are going to see me ugly cry because that's like, that was real. It's like live TV. That's just what happens. Like, I couldn't hide it. That's how I felt, you know?
Yeah, I've been close a couple of times. Not yet. They haven't gotten an ugly cry out of me yet. Robbie Rock, go ahead.
So I'm very curious how much of the production you control versus the media agency, and how big of a team do you work with in the field, in the studio? Because I know that they've really kind of got you down to skeleton crews over the last couple of years when you're out there. So I'm just curious what your process is and how the challenges that you have in your day to day.
Yeah, so there's like 12 questions in that.
I know, right?
Well, my job title is technically an MMJ, which is a multimedia journalist, which means that I do everything production wise from start to finish. So I come up with the story ideas, I pitch them in the morning meeting. I'm assigned them by my boss, whichever one of my pitches they feel that has the timeliness of today, has a value for the community, et cetera, that determines newsworthiness of the day. And then I go set up the interviews, I go shoot it, I edit it, I present it on air, I write up the web story, and then I come up with the pitches for the next day. And that's all happens in a span of 8, 9, 10 hours, just depending on what my story is and how long it takes me to do. So there's a lot, yeah. So that when you talk about skeleton crews, like we don't have an audio team, a lighting team, like that's all me. Everybody asks where my photographer's at. I'm like, right here. So the only thing that I do not have full control over is which one of my pitches I will necessarily get to do that day. Although I have been getting a little bit better at getting assigned the stories that I want, which is great. But that doesn't always come down to me. So that's up to a higher pay grade than I do. But everything else like is pretty much me from start to finish. I would say 95% of the time.
Very cool.
Wow.
I feel like you asked some other questions in there, but I can't remember what else the other questions were.
Did she get everything for you?
No, and that's it. Really, I was just looking for a synopsis, just kind of a snapshot of it, and that's it. Like as an MMJ, like when you're having to pitch, produce, edit, like if you're doing the entire production process.
Wow.
That's so. Tip of the hat, milady. Tip of the hat. That's a lot of work.
Thank you.
As a journalist, I remember those days. Like my journalism degree is in broadcast, and they tell us, I'm sure they're still telling journalists that journalism majors that when you graduate and you get those first couple of jobs, you may not necessarily be in a big market. You're going to be in a situation where you have to do a lot of the production yourself. So I definitely remember those days. So props to you.
Well, yeah, some people, not every news station works that way too. I mean, some places are strictly reporter and photographer teams. So that means that reporter isn't shooting anything. And it works a little bit differently, just depending on where you are. It really varies everywhere across the country. But I actually really enjoy MMJing. Like I love having full creative control of what my assignment is for the day, of where my camera is shooting, how the story is being told. Like I really enjoy that. And I honestly love being behind the camera more than I like being in front of it, because that's where all of the creativity comes in.
Wow. I feel you on that, actually. I feel you on that. So there's some couple comments online. We got Mike Winters on YouTube. He says, Madison is a huge college town also, although it is also the state capital and gorgeous, so I'm sure you have all kinds of news you can cover. And Jeanette Brown points out, love, I guess she went to your Instagram page, so love her pole dancing. Dance, expansive poses, body manipulation, perfect antidote to a high-stress job. I gotta pull a picture up of your pole dancing. Let's take a look. This is you.
Jeez.
That's impressive.
Very nice.
It's a long time to learn to be that flexible. I mean, like years of stretching, like years.
That's impressive. So how long have you been doing the pole dancing?
I started when I was 18, and everybody always asks how I get started on that. And it's funny because I was sitting in my room one day just on YouTube, and you know how like on the right column it's like, oh, you search this, or you may be interested in this, and then so you just end up going down like a hole of video searches like that. I stumbled upon a pole dancing competition video that way, and I saw it, and I like fell in love, and I was like, I have to see if there's classes around me. This is when I was still living in Sacramento. And there were, and I immediately signed up. And from day one, I was like just drenched in sweat. It was such a good workout. It was so much fun. And then I saw other women
Yeah.
that were doing
I've heard
that
it's a
and
fantastic workout.
yeah. And
Yep.
so I was like, I need to do this for the rest of my life. So I've been doing it ever since I was 18.
Good for you.
That's pretty
Nice.
impressive. I mean, the flexibility. I mean, the strength it takes to do some of the moves on those things is pretty impressive. Let's
Yeah.
take a look at your. I got to look at your background here. I mean, you've got a cave here. It's like a she cave. It's like awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I call this my little Zen den. So the roof is like a triangle angle, so I just kind of put like tapestries up on the wall just because I had a bunch of tapestries in the apartment that I was living in before here, and I didn't really want to give it away. I had to kind of consolidate to fit into the space. So I put them all up, and it's just it feels cozy and comfy and very zen. It's very peaceful in here. I enjoy it.
I love it. That's amazing.
Nice.
Amazing. Any last questions for Jamie?
So
Are you gonna stay in Wisconsin? Sorry.
No, go Sharon.
No.
Go Sharon.
I am,
Do you have like?
sorry.
Well, start with the
Okay,
first
I'll ask one more time.
question.
I'll ask
Do you
one
see
more
yourself-
time, and then you guys. Okay.
No, I was just piggybacking your initial question. Like, do you see yourself staying in Wisconsin as a journalist, as a reporter?
I'm gonna see where life takes me at this point. So in news, we work on two-year contracts, right? So that's why I was in Iowa for 2 years. I was in Madison for 2 years, and right when my contract was coming to an end, the pandemic hit. So everybody was like laying people off. Nobody was hiring. So then I re-signed another contract. So I have 1 more year left on that contract. But I think
Nice.
as I get older, I am, your priorities change. So I still love being in news. I still love being an MMJ, but I know that there's a lot more to life and a lot more interests that I have that could be options, but I haven't really made a decision on what I'm going to do with my future yet. And I think that's really hard to say because literally anything can happen in life that can throw you a curveball, that can change your career or, whatever. So I'm just kind of riding the wave at this point and figuring out what I would like to do with the rest of my life. But for now, yes, I am in Madison and will be here for a little bit. Yeah.
For another
Nice.
another year or two, I guess. All right, so a couple of quick comments online before we let you go because we are out of time. Jacqueline Robbins says it's an excellent exercise, and then Ashley Jones says, "Neo, I think you should try it." Why you
They
shaking your
are.
head, Lizzie?
So
Why-
just to let you know, this is not only like a women's competitive sport. Like there are men, especially like my pole idols are from Russia, and they're like insane guys that do this. And it's not like what you see on my Instagram is very geared towards like the feminine side of pole dancing, but there are guys that do tricks on there that are just like I don't know if I could ever do that. Like it's insane. It's an insane like it's like gymnastics on like vertical gymnastics basically. And like if you're worried about looking feminine, like there is no need to worry about that because there are literally guys that do this like they don't look feminine at all. They just look like
we're gonna talk about straight men saying I love you, and I'm confident in my manhood, so I'll try it. I don't mind.
it's hard.
It's more about my body type. I'm not worried about looking too feminine. I'm just worried about falling off and breaking something.
It is very hard.
All right, so I want to thank you so much, Jamie, for joining us. This was a great time. We loved having you. You gotta find her at Jamie_Perez TV on Instagram. Fantastic Instagram page. Any last words, Jamie, before we let you go?
No, just thank you guys for having me and obviously promoting my Instagram. That's cool too. But I just like enjoy talking to people and I think it's important for people to get to know the personalities behind news because I feel like news these days, a lot of people think that we're just like heartless robots. And I really, that hurts because I know that I'm not. We're regular people with families who want to achieve the same things in life as everybody else. Love and happiness. Like that's all we really want. And we're just doing our job sometimes. It's not always easy. It's not always fun. It's not always what you want. But
I think you
know,
guys have
just
some of the hardest jobs, to be honest with you, especially in the
yeah,
field.
yeah, definitely. So I try to have a big heart regardless of what adversities come my way. I take nothing personally. So I just try to live by that, and just the golden rule should always be golden and treat people how you want to be treated. So, and you never know what people have gone through. So
Wonderful. Well, you're definitely welcome to join us back anytime. We thank you again for joining us. It was a great fun show. All right. Thank you so much, Jamie. We will see you again soon. All right. That was Jamie was awesome, huh?
She was
That was good.
Great guest.
I loved it.
And for me,
I wanted to
it's
keep
always-
talking to her.
I know I did too. We're just so tight on time now.
For me, it's always the young journalism talent. Because I remember this, and a lot of things have changed, but she, appears to be very straightforward and engaging and smart, beautiful young lady who's out there doing her thing. So I love to see that. I love to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna. I think she's gonna do some really great things, and I'm glad she came on the show because we're gonna replay this in 10 years and be like Jamie Perez on the Good Morning America. She was with us.
Jamie Perez was on our show, was on Truth Lies Shenanigans.
Exactly.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into our main topic, show topics. All right, if you've never been to TLS before, let me tell you a little bit about how this works. Each week, our hosts bring us topics in the news they want to discuss. That host will tell everybody what's going on, then our lovely panel will chat about it, sharing their unique points of view on the issue until we see our friend Genji. And that's when we know time is up and it is time to hear from you, where we'll take your comments and questions online. And at the very end, we'll check with our panel to see if this was truth, lies, or shenanigans. For our podcast listeners on Apple Podcasts, don't forget you can join the live conversation every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We stream on all major platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, at TLSLiveShow, or TLSShow.com. Let's get to it.
Truth, lies,
Before we get
shenanigans.
to it,
What's that?
can I just say this? So Gianni, I've been looking at your planet Jupiter behind. That's Jupiter, right? Behind you.
Oh yeah.
So you look at it very quickly from a different angle. It looks like a McDonald's sandwich. Like if you look at it very quickly,
Like a Big Mac?
it looks like an Egg McMuffin or something.
I saw
I
when
can
you
see
said
Egg
a McDonald's
McMuffin.
sandwich. I
I
saw the breakfast sandwich
I
right away.
see Egg McMuffin. I see it. I can see an Egg McMuffin. That is hilarious.
I think
We're loving it.
We're loving it, Gianni.
so
We're loving it.
All right, that's some shenanigans right there. All right, let's start out with Rob B today. You have a tragic story to tell us. Tell us what happened to this poor Muslim family in Canada.
Well, it initially began in 2007 when the Afzal family moved to Canada from Pakistan in search of better life, and they found themselves in London, Ontario. Now, unfortunately, a week ago today, the Afzal family was struck by a truck driven by a 20-year-old Caucasian male. Salman Afzal, 46, his wife Madiha, 44, their daughter Yumna, 15, and Salman's mother, 74, are dead. Their 9-year-old son Fayez survived and remains in hospital, but is now listed in stable condition. On Monday, the 20-year-old man was charged with 4 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder in the hit and run involving the pickup truck. Now, they believe that the family was targeted because of their Muslim faith. The police investigation is ongoing. And on June 9th, just a few days ago, they came out, and the quote was that this is a terrible tragedy and our hearts go out to the people who have been affected. This was from Facebook. There's absolutely no placement on our platform for people who allegedly commit such horrendous acts. We have removed the suspect's Facebook account. So they've basically nuked his online presence. So if you try to find anything about this guy, the only thing you're going to find is the story. And I'd rather not name him because I hate giving these people any infamy whatsoever. Paul Waite is the detective superintendent at the London Police Services in Ontario, revealed that terrorism charges are also possible against this individual because there's evidence that this was a planned, premeditated act and that the family was targeted because of their Muslim faith. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned it as an act of terrorism, as did Ontario Premier Doug Ford and the National Council of Canadian Muslims over the course of the last week. Now, the attack has led to calls for the government to act on a promise to implement online hate legislation that would crack down on hateful material being posted on the internet. But unfortunately, anti-Semitism, anti-Asian sentiment, and Islamophobia are alive and well in Canada, which just boggles the mind. Mike Arnfield, a former London police officer who's now an associate professor in criminology at Western Ontario, says that the case is unusual because people linked to such killings tend to leave behind digital legacies and a trail of hatred online. So that's why, with the Facebook profile being taken down and people can't get into it, this guy's a ghost. So it's really an anomaly. So my question to you is, should there be tighter controls on the internet to prevent radicalizing hate speech? And do you feel that this is domestic terrorism?
Well, to your first question, can I start?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said, should there be controls on social media, right?
On the internet, not social media, just the internet, period. Because social media is a niche. So I'm talking about just finding ways to, like anything that has radicalizing hate speech.
I was gonna say definitely on social media. I don't know how you do that on the internet. Because then we get into regulating the internet. So that's a tough one. Social media, I think absolutely, and I think a lot of them are working hard because, again, we got a strike for accidentally saying the N word one day. So
we've gotten several strikes. Let's be honest. We've gotten several strikes.
But I'm saying, as far as like race, I'm talking about. Well, we got several.
No, I'm just saying. We've gotten several strikes for innocuous language.
Yes, innocuous language, yes.
Or for things that, were not hateful, we're not, targeting any group, just random shit. And it's like, okay, so if we're going to get caught, if we're going to get tagged, if we're going to get flagged for this, and we can't broadcast, we can't, publish our, very small website, our very small show for like 10 days, 2 weeks, or whatever, how are these other hateful
That's what I've been trying to figure out.
Allowed to post all of this rhetoric?
You wouldn't believe how many TikTokers have stated that. And I know we're getting a little bit away from Robbie's conversation, but you wouldn't believe how many TikTokers have talked about like the fact that there are so many people out there who are just getting away with this hate speech, whereas others, like for example us, are getting dinged nonstop. It just doesn't make sense. I think it's because we get trolled, though. I think that's a big part of it. But to your question about this is a horrible, horrible incident. I mean, unfortunately, it happens often here in the U.S. Probably rarer in Canada. But I mean, we get news stories locally where stuff like this happens. It's like this is just, but it's just horrible. I mean, and people are just simply taught to hate, and it's a shame that people are taught to hate because we don't come out the womb just wanting to hate and kill people because they think differently and feel differently. But for some reason, we are just passing that down, and this legacy of hate down generation after generation, and then. I mean, we understand some people have mental illness. We get that, but outside of that, it's a learned behavior, and it's just horrible. I'm tired of seeing it, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Representative Ilhan and this Islamophobia that's going on. And I mean, it's just people are scared of what they don't understand. I mean, I didn't get to show the death threat that she had gotten. Matter of fact, maybe I'll just play it now because it is relevant to what you're talking about.
It is relevant, yeah.
Let me just play it now. But Ilhan Omar received this death threat from some right wing. It's clearly a domestic potential terrorist, and she posted on her Twitter page. Now, I will say it uses some colorful language. We aren't streaming on TikTok right now, so we are actually okay to play it.
They destroy cultural heritage. They destroy history, just like Miss Ilhan Omar, because Muslims are terrorists, and she is a raghead nigger, and every anti-American communist piece of shit that works for her, I hope you fucking get what's coming for you.
I mean, this is
Ditto,
just
son.
horrible.
Ditto.
This
I
is
hope you get what's
horrible.
coming for you too. Shit.
And I'm sure this is definitely not the only one she's gotten, and this is not just happening to her. This is horrible. All right, Lizzie, go ahead.
I mean, I just don't want to make it sound like I am compassionate towards these people, because I'm not. I just don't understand how you wake up every day with this level of animosity towards not only people, your next door neighbor, the folks you see walking down the street, but people you don't even know. A whole class, a whole group, a whole race of people, a whole religion that you don't even know. Like, yeah, I got folks in my life that, I've come across that I can't stand, that, I wouldn't save even if you paid me $10 million. However, I don't look at the world with a lot of hate. I don't hate a group of people. I don't hate a color of people.
I hate
don't
individuals. There are individuals. I hate Trump.
There's individuals, but then there's the whole group. I don't hate a gender of people.
Right.
And it seems, these people, they just wake up spewing all of this vitriol. And I don't understand that. Like, your soul is just raw and ugly. And I don't know how you sleep at night. Like, I don't consume myself every day worried about people I don't like, and finding ways to get at them, to get back at them. Or nor do I wake up every day thinking that everyone is trying to get back at me. And so I'm always like, yeah, there's certain stories where I'm just like, okay, fuck that motherfucker. But then there are certain stories where I'm just like, I do not understand this. I really do not understand this. And again, if we go back to, Representative Omar, like she said, there are people in the Capitol, in Congress, who they haven't said it outright, but their actions show that they hate her. They hate her culture, they hate her ideology, they hate her religion, and that overwhelms anything that she has to say, whether it be good or bad. So this just makes me so angry and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Johnny?
I feel like oh, Liz is still talking, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, what I agree with you, Liz. Like, when you said that these type of news stories make you mad and like sad at the same time, because it's like with somebody like with a shooting or with like attacks, there's some type of motive behind it. With this, I mean, it's a hate-driven motive, but it's like, how can you fix what's in somebody's soul? You know what I mean? That's hard to like rectify. So in this case, the only thing you can do is policy change. The only thing you can do is some type of like, instead of federal law, like I think in the article somebody mentioned like a jurisdictional approach. Like, make it harder for these racists online, like Rob mentioned, but in general, like, start really penalizing, I don't know. That's hard. It's hard because I feel like we have been doing that in America anyway. I'm not sure because Canada is not as common. Hey, Gingy. But I think that, yeah, it's hard. This is such a sad story because at the end of the day, it was a whole entire family. And a little boy fighting for his life.
The other problem with the internet is regulating free speech. The government gets involved in regulating the internet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for those comments. Robbie, did you have any more comments before I move on?
I do. I just wanted to thank you all for the conversation and your comments. And I guess I'm getting really tired of these phobia terms, is like Islamophobia, homophobia. They're not afraid of these people. They're afraid of their own small ideas and what these foreign entities represent to them.
Yes.
They're bigots.
Their own
They're
fear.
bigots. They're racist. They turn, some of them turn to murderers, and this type of hatred has no place in our society. And Neo, I understand what you're saying about, you know, that slippery slope, policing free speech versus letting people express their ideas. But when you're hate mongering, it's got no place. And the internet is propped up by our governments. So our government shouldn't be propping up a platform or allowing that type of activity on the platforms that are government owned.
I agree with you, Rob. I think, it's a matter of semantics, but it's important semantics because when you say homophobia, you're not afraid of homosexuals, you hate homosexuals. When you're a xenophobe, when you say xenophobia, which means, a hatred of foreign people, of people who are not from your own country, you're not afraid of them, you hate them. And so I think a lot of times we're dumbing down the terminology to, make it easier for these people to say, okay, well, it's not that big a deal, but it is. This is pure, unadulterated hatred. Like Rob said, it's not a phobia, it's hatred. And we need to start acknowledging that and dealing with that, whether it be, at the government level or whether it be in the streets. Like it's gotten so out of hand. And again, I feel so horrible for this family because they were going about their business the way we do every day. They were minding their business, not bothering anyone. And this guy decided he was going to get in a car and crash into them for no reason, just because he didn't like their ideology. Like that is hatred. That's not a phobia. That's not, he's fearful of them, he's afraid. That's a phobia. That's a hatred. That's a hatred.
And what's heartbreaking is the sole survivor of this attack is a 9-year-old orphan who lost his mom, dad, sister, and grandmother in one shot.
Who will never be the same. Who will never be the same.
No.
Who will never be the same.
All right, so comments online. What the WTF is, this is Jose, is going on in the world? So much ugliness. Jacqueline Robinson, horrifying. If it had happened here, the media would have failed by trying to normalize the killer, using a cherub-like childhood picture of him or describing how he grew up in a loving home.
Or mental illness. Mental
illness is the more common one now.
And that's not to say that there's not a lot of mental illness out there, because there is. However, in this country, especially with the media and law enforcement, we tend to attach mental illness to a certain hue. You're mentally ill if you are lighter than the common person. You're a thug. Or a terrorist if you're darker. That's what I mean. I'm not trying to downplay mental illness, but we look at it, it is advertised differently in this country.
All right. Paulette Bertrand says, I followed the funeral and was totally impressed with all the speeches, all hardworking, educated people. Jeanette Brown, vehicular terrorism really frightens me.
Yeah, because you can't do anything. Like, you can't.
It comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of nowhere. It comes out of nowhere.
Jacqueline Robson also says, I will say this. I find it fascinating that Twitter and Facebook have done more to hold IQ 45 accountable than the Justice Department, Congress, and law enforcement. That is an interesting
That goes back to, where a lot of this hatred is coming from, because, it was boiling for decades underneath the surface. And again, 45, Trump gave these people the right to say, we hate. He told them it was okay for you to hate someone who does not share your skin color, someone who is not white, someone who is not a white male. He made them feel comfortable in their skin. And now we are seeing the repercussions of that. And it's awful. We're all paying for it. white people, black people, other people, we're all paying for it. We're all paying for that.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that topic, Rob D. We've got to move on to our next one. Lizzie.
Truth, lies, shenanigans.
You want to talk about this pit maneuver stuff. Tell us what's going on.
So pit maneuver, for people who aren't in law enforcement or who had not been pulled over, PIT, P-I-T, as it relates to law enforcement and traffic violations, PIT refers to pursuit intervention technique. Okay, so what we are dealing with now is a story that came across the media, got hyped up over the past week. This is out of the state of Arkansas. There was a woman who is suing a state trooper after she claimed that he performed a pit maneuver dangerous suit intervention against her during a traffic stop. He clocked her, I believe, doing 84 in a 70-mile-per-hour portion of the interstate. He drove up on her with his lights, with his police lights and sirens going on, and felt that she didn't pull over fast enough. He felt that she didn't acknowledge that he was trying to pull her over. And so what he did was he did the pit maneuver, which he took his car and rammed into her. So he was behind her, pursuing her on the highway. He rammed into the back of her car, causing her to flip and crash. And this was a woman who was pregnant at the time. So Neo's going to show you, footage of the actual incident in the moment. But while you're watching this footage, I want to ask the question, or ask the panel, ask our viewing audience, do you think these pit maneuvers need to be banned? So let's just take a quick look, and I'll give you, after you watch this, I'll give you some more background information on what the laws are in terms of stopping, pulling over on the highway when a cop comes behind you and lets you know that you are being stopped and we need you to pull over. But I just want you to watch this and see if you think this was the appropriate maneuver.
Now she's turning on her hazards, slowing down. So she got over to the right lane, and then 2 minutes in, decides to initiate his maneuver. She continued driving.
They hit the inside wall.
And he just crashed.
They roll over. Give me EMS started.
Get out. Come on out. Why didn't you stop?
Because I didn't feel like it was safe.
Well, this is where you ended up.
You're pregnant.
Well, ma'am, you've got to pull over when we stop.
I had my flashers
It doesn't matter,
on.
ma'am.
I just left the movies in Cabot. I went with my dad's girlfriend and my nieces. And I was on my way home.
Okay, well, I told you you were running 84, and then when I
know that I was speeding. I agree with you. I was
all you had to do
speeding.
was pull over, ma'am. And
I didn't even think it was safe for you for me to pull
ma'am,
over
this
there.
is what we do out here.
I
We're
just
trying to
didn't
get you
feel
to
like the
stop.
shoulder was big enough
Okay, well,
with
this
the
is what
wall.
happens when people don't stop for us.
You
We stop
wreck
them.
us?
We hit the vehicle. Do we anticipate them rolling over? Absolutely not. Been doing this for 27 years, ma'am. And when people don't stop, we have no idea what's going on inside the vehicle. I even pulled up alongside of it.
I know, and then blinded me with the light.
When people don't stop for emergency vehicles, we end this right here, right now. All you had to do was slow down and stop.
I did slow down. I turned on my hazards. I thought I was doing the right thing. I know. I do understand what you're saying. But do you understand what I'm saying too? I didn't think this was enough room for you to come up beside my car and for you to be safe, honestly.
Well, I get that, but this is what we do.
All right, Liz.
So again, my question to the panel is, one, what do you think about these pit maneuvers? And two, do you think that she was well within her right to keep going? She says that she was trying to pursue a safe spot for her to pull over.
Johnny? With us, Johnny? All right, let's move on to Rob B. Go ahead.
The pit maneuver is an absolutely effective means for ending a pursuit. It's been used for decades, and I really don't see an issue with it because it's not a ram. What it is you're basically coming up and clipping the rear quarter panel, and that basically throws off your trajectory. Typically, it causes the car to wobble really, really hard, but you lose your momentum. And where she's saying that the shoulder didn't have enough room for my car alone, but my thoughts were also for the officer that didn't need to be standing beside my car, like there was literally not enough room. She's completely incorrect on that. There is an easement, there's an emergency lane, there's an easement that's right there, and I've gotten pulled over on multi-lane highways. I have. And you pull over into that lane. She threw her four-way lights on, and sure, but she didn't slow down her rate of velocity. She may have still been going 70 miles an hour, but traveling the speed limit with your four ways, whatever. She should have pulled over. Is the crux of it. There was enough space for her to do it safely.
I'm going to definitely disagree with you.
Yep. We got you, Rob B. We coming at you.
Oh hell yeah! I'm totally expecting it.
We're coming at you.
Look, I mean, listen. He didn't know who was in the car. He didn't know what was going on. I have seen high-speed chases happen for hours before they try to pit maneuver sometimes because they want to make sure something's done safely. If they have an idea of what the situation is, what's going on. This lady, 2 minutes in, I mean, listen, as a black man who has to drive through the South often, or has driven through the South often, there have been times where I have felt scared to pull over in a situation where, I might be by myself, unlighted, with a police officer. I have the right to wait until I find a safe space to pull over, as long as I'm not indicating that I am a flight risk. She was not a flight risk. She pulled over to the right lane. She slowed down twice. She slowed down when she pulled over, then she slowed down when he put on his flashers. She slowed down, put on her own flashers to give him an indication that, hey, I plan to slow down and stop. She was not running from him. She was not trying to evade him in any way. She was, to me, even when I first looked at it, I could see that she was just looking for the reason had to be, even before I heard the audio. I hadn't heard the audio. My first inclination was that she was looking for a safe place to stop. That had to have been the reason, because I know on those shoulders, I've been on shoulders like the ones that she had, where she had maybe like 3-4 feet or whatever it is, maybe 6 feet of shoulder. Those things are dangerous. I mean, even when you just stop on them. So the first thought was that she was looking for someplace safe. And 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes in, to not give her an opportunity to pull over in a safe spot, and he just hits the back of her and flips her car. That's ridiculous.
We don't have the full video. We don't have the full context because he could have been observing her.
On his lights.
She could have been observing her drive erratically for a lot longer than that.
But even if he was tailing her a lot longer than that, this was not a high-speed chase. This was not a chase. This was based.
She was not evading.
Based off of a speeding infraction. This was not a criminal. This was not someone they had a warrant.
It just killed somebody or something.
This was just a regular traffic high-speed chase. And even before Gianni gets into it, again, Rob is in Canada. The laws may be different in Canada than what they are here in the United States. In the States here, the laws are different state to state. This was in the state of Arkansas. And according to the traffic laws by the state of Arkansas, the driver has the right to pull over and pursue a safe space by turning and letting and indicating to the police officer by slowing down and putting on their blinkers. She did. And so he didn't even know the own laws of his state. There was nothing in this particular initial traffic stop, initial traffic pursuit that said that this woman, this person in this car,
danger to
was,
anyone in any way.
was any type of jeopardy. And like Neo said, he didn't know who was in the car. There could have been a bunch of, like, she was pregnant, but he didn't know who was in the car. He didn't know if there were kids behind her. Like, to clip her like that so quickly and to assume that she was a threat made absolutely no sense.
Even if she was trying to get just to the next exit, allow that.
And to your point, Neo, the next sign on the exit said, the next turnoff, the next safe spot was a mile away. Now, I don't know if she was planning to drive an entire mile, but the law allows her, if it's at night, if she feels that she's not safe, the law allows her to drive that mile to a safe space. He would have been perfectly fine following her the way he did at a safe distance until she got to a safe space. And again, she slowed down and she put on her lights to say, I recognize you. And so then to flip her, that's
that was way off. Johnny, you there?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say that no, I agree with you guys that, well, I don't think Rob agrees, but I agree with you guys that it was wrong, only because it did look unsafe, and I think we're all familiar with the highway and shoulder and that wall is too close. Like anything, a slip of a driver's arm could ram you guys. You know what I mean? Like on the shoulder of that highway. So it's very. But I will say, I don't think they should get rid of that maneuver.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Entirely. I think that they should get rid of it for like those type of traffic stops or whatever. Like it should only be for like high speed chases with criminals or people that they are.
All you have to do is follow the law.
The pit maneuver is not usually used at high speeds because it's a difficult maneuver to establish, because you have to get your front bumper to the rear quarter panel and nudge it. It's not a high speed maneuver. It's a low speed maneuver deterrent. High speed is putting up roadblocks and spikes.
But Rob, it never should have been used by law. It never should have been. She did nothing wrong. Again, I'm going to read you. According to the Arkansas State Driver's License and Law Guide, when drivers are being stopped by police, they have the right to activate their turn signal or emergency flashers to indicate that they are seeking a safe place to stop and pull over to the right side of the road.
All you gotta do is follow the law.
And he, like Neil said, he acted like within 2 minutes. This wasn't an extended pursuit. This wasn't an extended chase.
2 minutes from the time he put on his flashers. So yeah, and we saw that.
I mean, he never had the opportunity to run her license plate or anything.
Yeah.
Like this.
What kind of threat she is? What kind of? Yeah, I mean nothing. It's It was.
He got lucky in that she wasn't really injured. She was pregnant at the time. She went on to safely, deliver her baby. But this could have ended a completely different way when she wasn't trying to evade the police at all. She was looking for a safe.
Oh no! If that had been my wife and my baby, there's a decent chance I would have been in jail for assault on an officer. So it's a decent chance. I'm just saying. I don't know. I can overreact with certain things, and that's one of those things that I might overreact.
A black man getting killed by police.
Yep. That would have been me. That would have been me. Y'all would have been talking to me the next day on the show.
Oh,
man, that's dank.
That's for perception of reality.
It's perception of reality. All right, so let's get to these comments online. Mike Winter says on YouTube, how does it improve public safety to cause a wreck for a speeding ticket? How does that improve? That's a great question. Because I mean, yeah, I mean, the people behind her could have easily been, been injured as well. Jeanette says there are shoulders that aren't wide enough. There are shoulders that are not wide enough. Absolutely. Ashley says if it was dark road, I would do the same to waiting to a well lit area. If she wasn't increasing her speed, he could have followed her. Um, Jacqueline Robinson's going 14 over the speed limit doesn't warrant those actions by the officer. She totally acknowledged the police. This is from Jose. So looks like you're in the minority, Rob B. Extreme minority. you're one out of like 40 right now.
Totally could have handled it differently, especially since by law it was within her rights to seek a
And
safer place.
it's perception, right? Because if the police officer, to me, when I look at that highway, there's a safe place for you to pull over.
All right. Gianni Storm. Let's get to the next hot topic.
Truth, lies, shenanigans.
We're once again way over in time, so Gianni.
Y'all. Love.
We got to talk about this, even if it's for a short while. We got to talk about this.
Hell yeah.
Gianni, what's your topic?
I'll be quick. So heterosexual men, unless drunk to the point of slurred speech, rarely express their love for one another, for their pals, rather. In a 2019 survey of 1,005 Americans by GQ magazine, 97% acknowledged that expectations for male behavior has changed and in the past decade, but fewer than half of those males were not comfortable with it. Older men cling on to the ideals of manhood that they learned as the kids in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And in a world where sensitivity is high and social norms are changing, I wanted to get the panel's perspective or opinion on this subject. Heterosexual men telling each other, I love you. Should there be a boundary? Should it be accepted? What do you think?
I want to start with Lizzie because she's the other female on the panel, and then we'll get to the two males.
I mean, should there be a boundary? No, like there's no boundary, with, women saying, I love you towards one another. I think this is all a part of, the latter 20th, 21st century, perception of what masculinity and machismo should be. Which I don't agree with. But one of the things that, which says that, men cannot be affectionate. Men cannot show affection towards other men. If they do, they're gay, they're the F word, they're all of these other things. They're not allowed to come to terms with or express their ability to love, whether it be a male or another male or female. One area in which, and I challenge you guys to pay attention to this. One area where this doesn't necessarily, in my experience as a sports journalist, one area where this doesn't seem to be a problem is with a lot of male athletes. They're always telling one another that they love each other, especially if a guy made a good play, if a guy made a game-winning shot, game-winning catch, game-winning kick. One of the first things you'll hear is, I love you, man. I love you, bruh. It's quite common when you get
especially when you're really into it.
Yeah, it's when you get outside of team camaraderie and into the real world where we start to apply all of these other characteristics, homosexual characteristics, if you will, to how men are supposed to act. And that's one of the problems I think that, a lot of men have, not just in their relationships with other men, but in their relationships, their heterosexual relationships with females. They're not allowed to express themselves. We always assume that, okay, well, he looks like he gay. He acting gay. And it's like, no, he's acting like he loves his brother. And there's nothing to me, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Robbie?
Yeah. So why? I don't know why. I don't really get it, Johnny, because I'm very comfortable with myself, and for me to tell my male friends that I love them is not unheard of. But I think some guys struggle with it because love puts you in a vulnerable position, because it should be. You're being honest. You're putting yourself out there. You're leaving yourself open. I think another issue is that people associate intimacy with love. So that goes back to what Liz was saying, just having these homosexual tendencies by telling someone that you love them. No, love is love. And we'd be in a much better place if people practice that love rather than the toxic masculinity, the machismo. Just be open, be honest, be vulnerable, because there are select people in my life that if I lost, I would be crushed. So when I interact with them, I try to tell them that I love them. One of my dearest friends, one of my oldest friends, is funny because he does struggle with it. And when I tell him that I love him, it's met with the classic stoic man. I just get stonewalled. I never hear it back. Meanwhile, one of my newer friends of the last decade that through sport, we're very comfortable telling one another that, I can tell Paul that I love him. He'll tell me that he loves me. I can tell Neo that I love him. And we're cool with it because if anything, I think it makes me more of a man because I'm honest with myself and the world around me. And by spreading love, you spread happiness. Who doesn't enjoy hearing, hey, I love you, man. Hey, you know what? I love you too. That's awesome. Thanks. You're making the world better one little exchange at a time.
So look,
It's true.
I don't use the words "I love you" all willy nilly anyway. Like I just don't do that.
Yeah.
So there, I don't know if there's any expectation that men should suddenly start saying "I love you" to everybody, because I don't. I have a select group of male friends that I've been friends with a very long time. Julius, Manfred, Damien, you know them all, Lizzie. I see Manfred's online, actually. Love you, Manfred. Love you, buddy.
Manfred!
That's awesome.
But, even when we were growing up, there was always this sense of not being able to say I love you to one another, right? Even growing up. But as I've grown up and matured over the years, and, I know what I am. I know who I am. I'm not still trying to figure that out to this day. I'm always learning myself in a different way. I'm always changing, obviously, but I know who I am. I know what I am. I'm a straight heterosexual male, and for me to say I love you doesn't change that. If for me to say it to a man doesn't suddenly change the fact that I am a heterosexual male. So I can say those things to another guy if I feel it. I mean, I gotta feel it, because I don't say it to women unless I feel it. I don't say it to family. Family. I don't even say I love you to family unless I feel it. So it's not something I throw around, but at the same time, it's definitely something that can be said. I have no problem saying it. I used to. There was a time when I did.
Boundaries. I was gonna ask you, like when I was saying that earlier, Liz, I was thinking about past "I love you." What about a kiss or a hug, or like?
That might be going a little too far.
Okay.
But everyone's got a line. One of my favorite Rolling Stones covers was after the Red Hot Chili Peppers had recorded Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and it's Anthony and Dave Navarone that are kissing. And when they were interviewed about it, they was just like, you know what? Like, it happened at the end of the recording. Like, we'd been recording and writing for months. We were exhausted, and at that moment, it was the final check that was done. Like, it was the final edit. The album was done, and they felt such relief and happiness. It was just a natural expression of how they felt at that time. And a band is like a team. They're very close knit. These are your brothers. These are guys that you would bleed for.
Also, again, I liken it to sports. Like, if you pay attention to athletes for decades over the years, you look at how they interact with one another. male athletes are more likely to hug one another, especially after a good play, especially after a good win, than non-male athletes. Look at how they congratulate one another for a good play. They slap each other on the butt.
Now I've always hugged guys too. I've never been afraid to hug. I've always been a hugger.
Within like the sports circle, that level of affection, some people on the outside
I don't slap guys on the butt though.
But I was just going to say, people, some people on the outside see it as homoerotic. When you're in the sports, when you're on the sports team, that's a part of the ritual. Yeah. You hug, you say, "I love you, man." You slap someone for a good
I don't slap
play.
people on the butt. I don't do that.
You ain't playing a professional sport though. So
I'm professional. I'm professional.
But
my perception is that I'm professional.
So do you feel like there has to be a form of like a brotherhood almost for this?
Honey, do you see my face? Like what? You are not a professional athlete. Stop it. Again, go ahead, Gianni.
I get paid. Sort of.
Not for your sports acumen. No, you don't. No, you don't.
But no, Gianni, as far as the kissing thing, I don't kiss women like that. I don't just randomly kiss women. I save my kisses for my wife.
But
I might kiss my some family.
Go back in the day, 80s NBA. Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas. Magic Johnson, fame point guard for the LA Lakers. Isaiah Thomas, Hall of Fame point guard for the Detroit Pistons. They were best friends back in the days. And each time the Lakers and the Pistons would play back in the day, before the game, they would meet at center court and they would kiss each other on the cheek. Not on the mouth.
Yeah.
But they would kiss each other on the cheek. Like, in sports, it's different. Like there's this brotherhood camaraderie that's different. But then the people on the outside looking in often want to assign homophobic behavior to that, which isn't more often than not isn't the case. And that's not saying there's anything wrong with being a homosexual, but if you aren't homosexual, you aren't homosexual. Not every act of love connotes homosexuality.
All right.
Exactly.
So let's get to these comments so we can move on because this is I gotta do better on time. I'm sorry, guys. Mike Winter says toxic masculinity causes so many problems. This is on YouTube. Totally agree with that. Jeanette Brown, love equals vulnerability. My dad says those are your brothers, Neo, and I said yes, they are.
Yes.
He said, Mike Winter also says, seriously, most of my straight friends are huggers and kissers. I don't have many toxic masculine people in my life. And Manford, he says, I love you too, bro. Love you, Manford. Yeah, we've been friends since, I don't know, it's been we're going on 30 years now.
Wow. Awesome. Oh,
yeah. So that's definitely love. That's definitely some love. All right. We got to move on.
Truth, lies,
we're going to have another very short game, but we got to get it in. I pressed the wrong button. Of course I pressed the wrong button.
You did. In the interest of time, I'm going to run the wrong.
That one. No hugs for you on that one, Rob.
It was funny. Before the show, I was talking about I got to make sure I get my buttons together because I'm going to miss one. All right, so this is...
I can't see this text, just so you know.
Okay, I will read things off to you. Sorry about that. It looks like we're having trouble with some internet, so... but I think you guys are fine. I think it's just Gianni. So let me... I'll boost you a little bit. Let me give you a little boost.
I can't see it.
All right.
Much better.
All right, so this is our game. It's called What If. We're using the app What If. It's an Android app. Really simple. The app will give us random what if this, but that questions, and you'll answer yes or no. The app will give us the most popular answers to each question. And if you match, you get a point. Person with the most points gets our coveted final thought for the show. We're probably only do about one round of this, so the first question is very apt. So, what if the first thing you hear every morning is "I love you," but it's always different people that say it? So what do you guys say? Yes or no? You prefer? You okay with different people saying "I love you"?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
I'm good
Yep.
with it. I'm good.
Everybody.
Lizzie, you okay with different people saying "I love you" every morning? Just wake up to somebody new.
Yeah.
No. That's not.
Oh, that's true. That's not what it
You're
says.
implying things.
You're right. You're right. It does not say that. It just says different people, but it could be
Yes.
So it could be like 7 different people.
I could go out and have morning coffee at the end of the driveway and just have a random person drive by and say, "I love you, Rob. Good morning."
Oh,
You say yes, Liz?
Okay, yes.
All right. Let's see the answer. Hold on. Wrong mouse button click. All right, let's go. Oh, 37% answered yes, no. I mean, 63% said no, so we were all wrong.
And
Apparently,
see,
wow.
I think the no gets into kind of what Rob was saying. Like, the question is so broad.
yeah.
The prompt is so broad.
Like,
One, I really don't want to talk. First thing I wake up in the morning, I really don't want to hear from anybody. Let me go pee and have a drink of water.
all right.
That's what I want.
What if you got over 100 likes on every photo you post on Facebook, but you have to squint excessively to have your finger up your nose at all the pictures?
Sure. What the hell?
No.
I don't care.
Fine with
Gotta
that.
make people laugh.
I can do that. I get 100 likes every photo. That's fine with me. I'm yes.
No.
Busy.
You're gonna be known as the squinting nose picker. Like no.
The squinty picker.
You said no, Liz? No. Okay.
No.
The correct answer is no. So that puts Lizzie and Gianni in the lead. All right. We're going to do two more, and we're done. All right. What if time passes after your watch, but when your watch stops working, time stops forever? So if you're looking at so time passes after your watch. So and when your watch stops working, time stops. So I guess it's saying it's not worded very well, but I guess it's basically saying if your clock is moving, then we're just gonna go with this one. If your clock is moving, if your watch is moving, time passes, but if it stops, time stops.
Forever.
Okay with that?
When your watch stops working, time stops forever.
Oh.
I don't want time. Well, maybe I should. I don't know. That's hard.
It depends. Can I still move?
No.
I'm going with no too. I'm going no. Yeah, 71% said no because this is stupid. All right, it's the last one. Last one. All right, what if you could save lives by loving those who need love the most, but it is usually the people who deserve it the least? What if you could save lives by loving those who need love the most, but it's usually people who deserve it the least?
Yikes.
If they
They
deserve
okay,
it
so if
the
you can
least,
imagine
they're
Trump,
not worthy of
Trump
it.
needs love, but he deserves it the least.
But then he technically deserves it.
No.
He needs it. He needs some love in his life because something's wrong with him.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not giving it
I'll
to
be a
people
hero.
who don't deserve it. No, okay, so that's the correct answer. So we are going to pick between Lizzie and Gianni because they had the same answer. So we are going with Lizzie for the final thought. I'm sorry, Gianni, mostly because of your internet right now. Sorry, I'm being honest. All right, so Net Brown says you only get a lifetime of a commercially made watch. No, thank you. All right, let's get our shout out so we can close this down. People have already started dropping off our live shows, so it's been a long show. All right, shout outs. Gianni, get your shout out in while your internet's still working.
Shout to Olivia E., my co-host on Unscripted. Mwah, I love you.
All right, Robbie Rock.
Shout out to Jose behind the scenes for the show and for me. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate all the love, support, and all the time that you put into all of this stuff. And shout out to Mom, who tunes in week after week to watch. Love you.
All right, Lizzie Enders.
Shout out to Juanita Wall, who celebrated her I'm not going to give her age out, but we celebrated a very milestone birthday yesterday. Juanita Walls is the mother of Carlotta Walls Lanier, the grandmother of my bestie, Miss Brooke Brooke. They had a fabulous celebration for who we call Nana in Denver yesterday. So shout out. Nana's still doing her thing, still beautiful and gorgeous in her 90s.
All right. And my shout outs to my bestie Jam. I'm feeling bad because we had this deep discussion about saying I love you, and I've been so busy after my vacation, I haven't called to say I love you. So I love you, Jam. I'll be calling right after the show.
We love you, Julius. We love you.
Yes, we do. All right, and the final shout out goes to our pet shenanigans of the week. Let me see if I can pull it up quickly.
I didn't see this. Who got it?
Henry, submitted by Jose Vandalite.
That's my cousin, Jose.
You have another Jose in your life? How many Joses do you have?
I know, and the funny thing is, she works with my wife, so we've got two Joses working same place, and the other Jose lives just around the corner from here too.
I have another Jose. All right, must be a popular name in Canada.
It is a French-Canadian name.
Is it? That makes sense now. All right, so the caption is Henry, my assistant, with Henry, a beautiful gray cat, chilling on the bottom shelf in an office on a bookcase. So great job. Great.
Hi, Henry.
All right, to see Henry and all the beautiful pets posted this week, or to post your favorite pets, make sure you join the growing TLS Pet Shenanigans Facebook group. And the photo with the most likes and comments gets a shout out each and every week. All right, and that is officially all the time we have for today's show. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us. We hope that maybe you learned something new, gained a new perspective, or even got things off your chest. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe. That's going to be TLS Show. Check out our YouTube clips tomorrow, TLSshow.com. Also, our next TLS Live show is on Sunday, this time June 20th, not April, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. We'll have a new spotlight on Shane Harker, the founder and president of Rethink Resource. He works towards helping companies reach their zero waste goals. Don't forget Gianni Storm, Olivia E. Wednesday, 8 p.m., going unscripted. And our winner for our final thought, because her internet is slightly better than Gianni's, Lizzie Ender.
That's not why I won, Bama. That is not why I won. My birthday's coming up on June 24th, y'all. So let's all get together, get our drinks ready. Until then, everyone be safe. We're still not out of this COVID. Everyone be safe. Get vaccinated if you can. Wear your mask. But also love each other. This hate has gotten out of control. So love each other, y'all.
Hate is frustrating. All right, I'd like to thank Jamie Perez for joining us. Don't forget, follow her on Instagram at Jamie_Perez TV. Thank you, Gianni, Rob, Lizzie, and the people behind the scenes, Jose, Olivia, most importantly, you for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.
Shenanigans.
Oh, we heard you, Rob. We heard you, Rob.